Yo Soy Jew says, what are your thoughts about DLC on the disc? Does the consumer have a right to be angry about paying to unlock a feature they didn't know was on the thing they bought? Since when did having a right to be angry, prevent anyone from being angry? I think that this is a misguided rage issue. Everyone gets mad because it's like, everything that's on the disc should be mine for free. I'm like, yeah, I guess. But at the same time, when I entered my Batman Catwoman code and then had to download 200 megs of crap before I could play the game, that sort of sucked. If that was on the disc and it was just downloading an unlock key, that would have been better. If the Mortal Kombat fighters were all on the disc from day one, that would have been better than how it went, with even players who didn't make the purchase of those characters having to go download compatibility packs so that the players who bought the characters could use the characters. If you bought the characters and you connected to someone who didn't have the characters, you couldn't pick the characters. The things you paid for, useless, because people had to go manually download this stuff. It wasn't something they could force in a patch, because the patch limits on consoles are such that the files need to be smaller than the size of the Freddy character data. And that's a really shitty thing that I think will probably go away with the next generation of consoles, because it's been just such a fucking clusterfuck this time. And, you can make the argument, like, everyone likes to send around the thing going, like, I remember when all you had to do was put the disc in and play it. What happened to games? Guess what? Fucking games evolve. The game industry has evolved. The game business has evolved. The realities of business, the model has changed. And there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be people that do stupid shit with it, that do just the worst shameless DLC. There's people out there selling cheat codes as DLC. That still sucks. You're still seeing the horse armor equivalent happening here and there too. It's everyone figuring out, different things. Some people are trying to figure out, like, well, what's the cool thing we can do that people will actually buy? If we have a story-based game, what's the right way to integrate more story into this game? If we have a multiplayer-based game, what's the best, thing to bolt onto that game after the fact, and what's the best way to distribute it to players? So the argument shouldn't be, is it on the disc or not? The real argument should be, is the game I bought worth the money I paid? Because if, let's say, Gears of War came out and it only had 4 multiplayer maps, and then they immediately started selling you more maps, and then those were on the disc, you kind of fucked up. But they're not doing that. Because that wouldn't fly. Actually, it probably would for enough people that it would probably work for one game before everyone kind of wised up. That's maybe the sad part. But if those Gears maps were all on the disc, they could roll them into the modes a little more easily, I guess, couldn't they? Because this Horde Command Pack that came out, you can only use those in private games, because they didn't build a playlist that is the public playlist for people that have the maps. That sucks. Like, now if I want to use those maps in something other than, a Horde mode or whatever, if I want to play multiplayer on them, I have to go private match. I have to go invite a bunch of players, which I'm never going to do. So instead I have these maps that I can't use to their fullest ability. I can't use them to the full extent that they can be used, because this disparity exists. If there was a situation where, you could have some rule where if a certain number of people in the game owned the map, then it would play for the other players. They just couldn't launch games on those maps. Or, think about the way Uno handled it. Go back to that old classic. With Uno, they sold decks. They sold, Project Gotham racing themed deck. They sold a Street Fighter deck eventually, didn't they? Am I making that up? No? They did that? All right. if one player owned the deck, it would transfer to the other player. And it took longer than it should have because it had to transfer every time because the other person didn't have it. But you could still play that stuff. And using the things you bought when you want to use them is the key to making that multiplayer DLC work. And the Mortal Kombat situation was lame. The way that Street Fighter 4 has handled costumes, where it's a little different because if you bought the costumes, you'll always see the costumes. But if you're playing against someone who did not download the free costume pack, they won't see your costume. They'll see the default costume. And maybe they don't care. Why should they waste hard drive space for that bullshit? Which is why if that stuff was on the disc, it would have been cooler. It also would have made more business sense for the company because people being able to see that stuff that they don't own might actually get them to buy it. So it kind of works out on their shady, weird end too. But like it's stuff on the disc, like it should, there are a lot of people working on games now, hundreds of people working on some of them. So don't sit there and think like, oh man, these are for 10 years ago, these 4 maps just would have been on the disc. No, 10 years ago, they wouldn't have made those 4 maps. It's because they have money going directly to this content is why they make that content. They're not always diverting resources away from other things. It's similar to the argument about, oh, I can't believe they're putting multiplayer in this game. They're totally taking away from single player. No. And that is often not the case. It's easy to jump to that conclusion. But the skills required are practically totally different. So okay, well, we went and built a multiplayer team up because we want to take this game to the next level or whatever. And we have our single player down, so we're bolting on this multiplayer. Bolting on, perhaps a loaded term. So I guess, you need to think about that stuff. And also, announcing DLC before a game has hit stores. Tacky. Yes, I agree. It's a lame thing to do to start trying to sell people on your second offering when they still haven't bought the first. But don't take that as a sign that they're holding back. No, it's because the designers have been done with that game for 6 months because their part was written and wrapped kind of a long time ago. So instead of having that roll on to another new game, they're rolling on to the DLC. And the pipeline just kind of continues going as the game finishes up. The time between a game going gold and hitting stores. You got plenty of time for people to sit there and be like, well, let's bang out more maps. The disc has already gone gold. We can't put it on there. We physically cannot because it's in submission. It's being pressed. But we got time to make this stuff. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You want to take it all the way back and say, oh, all this stuff was free on the PC before? Yeah, it was. It's not anymore. Even on the PC. Steam has DLC. Origin will be able to sell you DLC. For the games that want to do that, they can do that. For the games that want to have free stuff, they can do that too. But the free ride on that shit is over. For the most part, you'll find a few developers here that'll kind of stick to that stuff, but it's kind of just Valve now, isn't it? I mean, Epic's not exactly blowing up on the PC these days, and they were kind of the other kind of last bastion of hope for that stuff, along with Valve. And I guess Blizzard, some of that StarCraft stuff, some of the mods and add-ons and stuff are free for that, but it ain't like the old days when we were downloading UT bonus packs with 20 maps and then also had hundreds of community-made maps and all that stuff. The business has changed. You can sit and complain about it all you want, but it's not going to change back. All you can really hope to do is that, that stuff just kind of tanks and they stop making it. It could happen. If you want to make that your platform, then don't ever buy DLC ever. And hope that other people join you.